Okay, we're gonna see if this works this time. Because literally a week ago, I did a reading of Soft Rains Will Come by Ray Bradbury. 13, 14-minute long recording. Didn't take. And maybe because I'm recording on my computer. I don't know. I don't have a camera and I'm not recording on my phone. That's that's gonna take up all my storage. Anyway, I'm starting a series. I have basically it's called My Mad Ramblings. This will be part one. Something that I started doing recently, as in like the past year, is I have so many thoughts in my head, as people do. And I wanted to put them somewhere. So what I started doing was like recording them on Word docs because you can do that little dictate button. Is it accurate? Absolutely not. Also, on Word, it fully censors me. Like I can't say the word shit or it will censor me. I can't say fuck or it will censor me. I don't know. But everybody has been telling me, "Oh, you got to make YouTube videos cuz I'm unemployed now." Everybody's everybody's telling me I got to make YouTube videos cuz I have such a nice voice and I should just do audiobooks. Are you listening? I don't have a nice voice. But I have a lot to say. So, the thing I want to talk about today is Into the Wild, Chris McCandless, and The Wild Truth by Corinne McCandless, his sister. Now, I don't have notes for this. With the other things that I hopefully plan to talk about, I have a ton of notes about all the things I want to hit. Don't have any notes for this. I did just finish rereading Into the Wild. I read it for the first time as a junior in high school, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. This time around wasn't my favorite. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about John Krakauer's voice, writing voice. I do have his other work, Into Thin Air. I haven't read that. I've seen the movie because again, read Into the Wild in high school, and she was like, "We're gonna watch the movie." Couldn't find the Into the Wild movie, so we watched the Into Thin Air movie, and she was like, "Close enough." Okay, thanks, babe. So I know how that story goes. He almost dies on Mount Everest, and a few of the people he's with die as well. Very sort of Franklin Expedition sort of vibe, which I do want to talk about that on here too, because I love the terror. Oh my god. Um, and I'm currently reading The Wild Truth by Corinne McCandless, like I mentioned, who is Chris McCandless's sister. The reason I want to talk about it is because there I think sometimes there's a I should say The Wild Truth dives far more in depth into Chris McCandless's life. Also, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I've never heard anybody pronounce it. I've never seen the Into the Wild movie. Like I just said, I've only seen Into Thin Air. But I in The Wild Truth is about Chris McCandless's life previous to him going to Alaska and passing away. Um, I'm about, I think I have 100 pages left of the book. I think she's kind of mentioned Chris as much as she's going to mention him. She focuses a lot on her own life and how her abusive parents affected her life and her marriages and her choices in life, basically. Um, and I see. I don't have any notes, so I don't know what I'm saying. Like I just thought this through, and I don't know what I'm saying. Um, I think it's easy to look at the Wild Truth and think, oh, so John Crocker lied Into the Wild, because that was kind of my first instinct. I was like, what do you mean he's not telling the full truth in Into the Wild? What the fuck did I read it for? What are you talking about? But I think the more that I'm reading The Wild Truth and thinking about the Chris McCandless story, it's I think The Wild Truth is more of a companion piece to Into the Wild. Because I think something that Into the Wild did, um, that I'm not too sure how I feel on, is mystify Chris. And that's very strange to me because he was just a man. Now, don't get me wrong. I when I read it the first time, I was very inspired by Chris's story. Not inspired enough to get out into nature, and not inspired enough to be less materialistic. I love things, but it's devastating because here is a 24-year-old man. He was 24. I'm 23 right now. Like, that was mind blowing to me. I don't know what I thought when I first read it. I thought he was at least like 30, not 24. That's absurd to me. That is crazy. But it was the 90s, you know? You could do whatever the hell you wanted in the 90s. You could just disappear without a trace, like he did for 2 years. Jesus, see, now I forgot my train of thought. My thing, I fully had to stop recording the other video because I forgot what the hell I was saying. That's so bad. That's why I need notes. Jesus Christ. Um, but yeah, I think personally, and I'm not Chris's family. I am not Corinne McCandless. I don't know them. I live, I live in Arizona, which Chris McCandless visited and lived in for a while. Not anywhere near me. I think he lived up in Bullhead. That is like 5 fucking hours from me. So I don't think I've ever even been there. But I think it's strange. And again, I don't know if it was intentional by Krakauer or not. But I think there's something strange to me how Krakauer mystified Chris, and how you see Chris's impact through everyone that he meets, but it's sort of like, and I don't know how to say it in any other way, but I feel like Krakauer kind of turned him into a saint. And that's, I'm not saying, oh, he wasn't perfect, no, whatever. But I think that's a strange thing to do when you consider that he was just a man. Maybe I'm in the wrong. Maybe I totally misread Into the Wild. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I was such a pessimist when I first read it, and now I'm inching to optimist. I don't know, dude. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I personally find that strange, and so I think The Wild Truth is a great way to, back on track. The Wild Truth is a great way to sort of combat that canonization that Krakauer kind of did. Um, I mean, Corinne McCandless thinks very highly of her brother. Obviously, they were each other's rocks during the abusive parts of their childhood, which was all of their childhood, and sort of into their adulthood, which is incredibly sad. But I think Corinne McCandless sort of brings Chris back to earth, so I enjoy that part. Um, the thing that I kind of sort of really wanted to talk about is the difference, and I mentioned the mystifying versus grounding aspects because that's how both Crocker and Corinne McCandless, that is how they determine why Chris did what he did. So for Corinne McCandless, he disappeared basically for those 2 years. He ran away. He ran away, but he was an adult. He was 22. Damn, that's crazy. He was 22 when he ran away. That, I wish I had the balls and the money. Well, he didn't have any money. But this is, you can't run away now in 2026. You know, I can't just like leave my phone and hitchhike across the country. That's not a thing you can do now. Somebody's gonna find out. Somebody's gonna be like, go up to my parents and be like, "Hey, your daughter's hitchhiking on the side of the road," and then I'm gonna get my ass beat. But I think Corinne McCandless sort of grounds Chris, and because of that, she can tell you why she thinks he did what he did, and that is because they had such a terrible, abusive childhood. Their parents were, I believe, their dad was very physically abusive as well as emotionally and verbally abusive, and then their mother was sort of verbally abusive, but very tumultuous relationship between their parents. It's crazy. Um, I also would highly encourage you read both these books. I'm reading them back to back. So I just, like I said, just finished Into the Wild. Now reading The Wild Truth, and it's crazy to go from one to another. Um, but I think Kareen's trying to tell you this is why he did what he did. You know, it wasn't just some, because a lot of the time Chris McCandless gets a bad rap because it's like, oh, because I don't want to say because of Into the Wild, but sort of because how he's portrayed a bit in Into the Wild as sort of this rich trust fund baby, middle class, spoiled brat who didn't appreciate what his parents had given him, and this sort of dreamer and da 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 da. When that's not really what he was. And again, I'm not trying to like I'm not trying to come for John Krakauer, but it, I think there's sort of that idea of like Chris McCandless left his nice little rich life to go be a tramp. What a fucking dork. What a fucking, loser. When that's not at all how I read him, either in Into the Wild, and that's not how I'm reading him in The Wild Truth. To me, when I was reading Into the Wild, to me, I didn't view Chris McCandless like that. There's sort of like this knee jerk reaction to view him as sort of. The comparison I was making was Timothy Treadwell. Do you know who I'm talking about? The gentleman who was torn apart by grizzly bears because he thought he was sort of one with the bears, and then he got his girlfriend killed along with him. There's the I've never seen the documentary, but the Werner Herzog film where he listens to the audio of Timothy Treadwell and his girlfriend being torn apart by bears. Horrifying, haunting. I think there's sort of an urge to see Chris McCandless like that, and this sort of this this sort of anti-hippie mindset of like, oh, what an idiot! He thought he could be one with nature. What an idiot! Doesn't he understand nature's not your friend? Nah, nah, nah. When I don't think Chris believed that. I don't think he believed he was one with nature. I don't think he was trying to become one with nature. I think he saw and understood the beauty of nature. I think to to reference The Color Purple, I think he understood that God gets angry when you see the color purple and you don't acknowledge it. I think he had that understanding, and more than that, it's gonna be 3 videos strung together because I don't have any notes. I don't know what I'm saying. I think I don't think Chris walked off into the Alaskan wilderness because he was a spoiled brat, because he was a rich kid, because I think there was some arrogance there, as there is with young people, as there is with older people. You can be arrogant and be 70. You can be arrogant and be 23, 24. That's how it works. Um, I think there was some maybe cockiness. I don't think it was all cockiness. I don't think his intent was to become one with nature. I think from reading Into the Wild, and I'm only talking about Into the Wild here, I think his Alaskan journey was Chris's last hurrah. in terms of deciding what kind of life he wanted. I think his goal to live in Alaska, first of all, he loved Alaska, so of course he was going to live there and take it all in. But I think his purpose of going was to decide whether or not this was what he wanted to do. I think he was truly torn between wanting to tramp forever, wanting to go to state from state, go to Canada, maybe he'd go to Europe at a certain point, traveling all these places under a fake name, no money, relying on the kindness of strangers, or if he wanted to settle down, whatever that settling down looked like for him. I think Jon Krakauer mentioned that Chris had mentioned maybe wanting to get married. I can't fully remember, to be honest, and I'm sorry about that, but settling down, whether that was getting married, was having kids, or whether that was just working in South Dakota at the mines. I can't even remember where he worked, but it was someplace in South Dakota with his one friend that he really liked, really admired. I think that's what Chris's purpose was. I don't think he was doing it because he was arrogant. Don't think he was doing it because he was a cocky son of a bitch. I really truly do not believe he was the Timothy Treadwell type. I think Chris understood man versus nature. I think Chris understood the dangers of nature and all that it encompasses. I don't think he was a fool. I think he believed that he could live in the Alaskan wild, and he did. He made it 100 days, and at day 67 is when he was going to turn back around, and then he couldn't. Then he got trapped there. But I don't know. I wish I could tell you what I thought when I first read it. I don't think it was really this. I think I was just like, yeah, transcendentalism, yeah, Walden by Henry David Thoreau. Yeah. I think even today Chris is a bit misunderstood in more reasons than one. I think there still is this sort of appeal to see him as, like I've been saying, cocky, arrogant, trust fund kid who thought he could, live in nature. What a fool. And then there's also this sort of, like I said, in Into the Wild, this sort of, what am I trying to say? This want to see him as sort of like this saintly figure, because that's what I meant to say in the other ones. That's sort of how Krakauer. I don't give a I can never say his name right. But that's sort of how Krakauer portrays Chris's. Had to start yet another video. I hope I can string these together. Had to start yet another video because I'm because I heard something moving in the other room, and I was like, no, it's just my dog, but I'm freaking out. Whatever. But I think that's sort of how Jon Krakauer portrays Chris's meeting with these other people, as it's sort of like, oh, he came to me at just the right time. He was such a force of energy, and it really, that older man, that Ron Franz, is that what the guy's name was? Chris persuaded him to change his entire life around. He went from, kind of knowing where his life was heading, taking the same route to church, taking the same route to the store, and then fully turning it around and, living in the desert in like an RV. So I think there's two sides of the coin, and that is to see him as an arrogant SOB, or to see him as a saintly figure who just transcends above everybody else, sort of like a Jim Morrison. And this is coming from somebody who, again, at the time that I read Into the Wild, funny enough, big Jim Morrison fan, big Doors fan, loved it. But then you get older and you're like, nah, he was just a man, actually. In Jim Morrison's case, just a drug addict. And I'm not, I still like the Doors. I still have such a respect for all of them. I think. I don't know if any of them have ever done anything bad. Besides Jim Morrison. We all know about Jim Morrison. Don't tell me in the comments, I know. Trust me, I know. But it's, yeah. It seems like there's no nuance. Something you're going to hear me say a lot in this My Mad Rambling series. People do not understand nuance, dude. Everything's black and white. Okay. It's just, I think you can see both sides of the coin, but I think you have to understand that Chris was both things and neither things. Now I'm pretentious. Now I'm being pretentious. Now I'm being an asshat. Anyway, if you're seeing this video, it means I was miraculously able to edit all 5 videos together and put them up on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.